Hello, everyone. Hello, Dolly.
Hi, Preston.
All right, we are live on the Lightgate. Well, actually, this is a pre-record, but we will be streaming live on 107.7 and 105.3 in the beautiful city of New Orleans. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, and other platforms. And yeah, you are watching the Lightgate. This is episode 5. I'm Preston Dennett, and my lovely co-host is Dolly Safran, contactee extraordinaire. And we have a really wonderful Memorial Day show for you today. I'm so excited about our guest. She's really one of my favorite people on this planet. And I'm going to say off of it too, because I think she has been off of it. But her name is Brigitte Barclay. We connected a long time ago. I did an investigation of UFOs in Topanga Canyon. There was a huge wave of sightings there, and she actually had an encounter in Topanga Canyon. That's in Southern California. And she's really an amazing person. I'll just give you her bio real quick here. Brigitte Barclay is one of the UK's most high-profile UFO witnesses and contactees. She has worked with many of the world's leading researchers of the alien abduction phenomenon, including the late Budd Hopkins, Dolores Cannon, and the late Harvard psychology professor John Mack MD, to name a few. Nick Pope, there's others. She has also collaborated extensively with former Ministry of Defence UFO expert Nick Pope, who has described her case as one of the most interesting and compelling that he has ever come across. And yeah, we did a nice 4-hour-long pre-interview with Brigitte. So it is an amazing story she has to tell. She's lived and worked in both the UK and the US, and her story has been featured in national daily newspapers, including The Sun and the Daily Mail, as well as in a variety of TV shows and documentaries, including This Morning on ITV, BBC, BBC Three, History Channel, SyFy Channel, and others. She has also been a consultant and was asked to advise on various TV programs and other shows like Fact or Faked on the SyFy Channel. So she's got quite an interesting resume, a really interesting story to tell of her own personal encounters. And we're going to have all kinds of fun just talking with Brigitte. So let's bring her on and get started. Hi, Brigitte.
Hi.
Can you hear us? Can you hear us, Brigitte? I don't think we can hear you.
I can hear you now. Hi.
Hi.
Oh, I got another technology fault.
So excited to talk with you. I hope the bio was accurate enough. I can't say one thing.
Unfortunately.
That's all right. I got it from your website, BrigitteBarclay.com.
Yeah.
So,
thank you.
And we have some interesting images that will be flashing during as you tell your story. And I know you have so many really amazing experiences to tell. So we're probably going to be hopping all over the place with it. And I'm really not sure where to start otherwise than the beginning, I guess, with your childhood and how I think the story that really captured me was you were talking about visiting what you thought was a gazebo at first.
Yeah.
And meeting with these beings.
Yeah. So it started at a very early age, around about 6, 7. I lived in a very small little village in England, and everybody knew everybody, so you could go off and wander around the village. And one day I decided to go into the little fishing village, down with my dog, and I decided to go home a different way. And I'm not sure why, but obviously, as we know, this is why I went home a different way. I went around the back of the houses, around the back of a car park, and that would lead down a lane to go up back around the back of my house. And as I was doing that, I met a young girl about my height, long dark hair, big eyes, and she showed me some money. Well, she showed me she's had something in her hand, and there was no, what I can't remember is there was no communication as a child. You know, you'd have like students, we used to have students come and stay with us, and maybe a lot of them came from like here to learn English. So there was no communication except for what was on her hand. And then she sort of showed me her house. She sort of said behind, you know, her, well, she didn't say it, but she communicated behind was her house. And, you know, I knew that I was late going home, because when you're a kid, you go out for tea, you go out all day, and then you only go home when you're hungry because you're out with all your little friends. And I remember going home, and then the next day, I then wanted to go back to our house because, oh, I found a new friend in the village that I could go and play with. And I went back down the same place, up to the cul-de-sac where it was, but the house wasn't there. And there was no house there. There were houses there, but where she showed me her house was all I can describe it as like a gazebo with lights around it. It was low, it was on the floor in the field, so it was all shimmery on the grass on the field, and it was very big. And the sort of, it kind of, if you think of it like, you know, I always used, like I say, as a kid growing up, I used to watch like the Elvis Presley films, and like you had like the big blue Hawaii Elvis Presley. I sort of kind of had that sort of feeling in my head. It was sort of like kind of like a gazebo with lights. But this, I think, another very good sort of comparison is the famous Gulf Breeze picture of at night, that beautiful craft coming down the road at Gulf Breeze. You know, the famous Gulf Breeze side of things. And all I remember as a child from that, of obviously the girl not being there, was me always jumping down from something. So I remember clasping something cold and then jumping down. And then I went home. And so that was my experience with what I call the Chinese girl in the gazebo. And later on, through hypnosis with a few people, Dolores Cannon that I've worked with, and Budd Hopkins, it wasn't a gazebo, it was a craft, and it was a being that I would been familiar with before. So that is the Chinese girl in the gazebo, sorry. but I did remember the jumping down, and I could never understand what the jumping down was.
So is that something that only happened once, as far as you can remember?
Yes. Of that encounter, yes. As a child, it wouldn't be unusual for me to be out in the garden and being told to come back in the garden at night. It wouldn't be unusual if I shouted, to members of my family, he's here and he's back, because there would be a man at the bottom of my garden by an old well that we had. And he was sort of like a mysterious man. He was dressed all in black. He used to stare up at the well, up towards the house. And many times, my brother, my cousin, my brother's friend Andy would run after him, and he would totally disappear. But where I used to see him, it would be like he was on a film dolly, you know, what they put the cameras on, where they sort of slide very quickly. I'm not sure what the word is for them, but he would just sort of like go in backward motion. And when I did a conference with Nick in 2001, he sort of described it, Nick Pope, when we spoke at Leeds conference, he described it like in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, they were called the gentlemen, that were sort of men in black, but slightly tilted, and they would just glide. And or, you know, you're sort of quite familiar with like humanoids, flying humanoids. It was very strange like that. I wasn't afraid of him. I don't recall being up close to him. Just he would be staring at me. I would know that he'd be there. I'd go to the window and I'd shout, he's here and he's back. Yeah.
Wow. Well, going back to gazebo thing? Did you go under hypnosis to recall? Like,
Yes.
did you recall anything that happened, say, in the? I'm assuming this is a craft. I mean, if you saw beings, did you recall any going inside or just coming out of it?
Well, with Dolores Cannon, when did I do the Dolores? Dolores, I worked with her in '97, so quite some while ago. My encounter in Los Angeles, in Brentford, the big UFO encounter that has got me into all this, and how I met you, Preston, by stealing your UFO poster into Panga Canyon.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah, but it's, you know, with Dolores, the hypnosis took me in a different direction. It took me as I wasn't allowed to remember lots of things. My time wasn't now for remembering. With Dolores, all I had was beings that would be, as I was lying down, I'd have beings looking over me. And yourself and Dolly spoke about it on your couple of Sundays ago with Christine Dennett. And we were talking about the eyes and the lenses on the eyes. Well, to me, they were lenses on the eyes. They were like, they were looking at me, and they were like stagnant green eyes, like just watery, stagnant green eyes. And I would be looking at them. My eyes would be sort of like hurting to look at them. And then they pulled them back. And you've got this book that's that's my book collection. But I then had Slits Thrive.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this is a great book. This is an absolute great book, isn't it? Yeah. So I think that was better one of it. But so they revealed their eyes in the slits for eyes, and I was so frightened by it under the hypnosis of Dolores calming me down, and because I was suffering from very, very bad headaches at the time, since I came back from Los Angeles in '93, and it was it's a blocker. It was there to block me, to remember things. So not so much came up with Dolores. It was more with Budd, but me and Budd didn't really talk that much about the we didn't regress too much about the Chinese girl. We regressed about the other encounters and the Los Angeles encounter that I had.
You know what fascinates me about that encounter is how he perceived it as a gazebo, because I do have another case from a guy in West Virginia who was driving with his family, and they drove by what they thought was a house, and he actually shouted out, "Look, it's the flying saucer house," because it was on stilts and it was around silver, and that's how they perceived it. Of course, they did go back and it wasn't there. And there's another case like that in Arizona where an elderly couple looked outside their house and like, hey, look, someone built a house overnight, and it had little lights all around it, and it was in this fenced off field, and they were going to go out there the next morning and check it out because they had no idea how that had just dropped there without them even noticing it. And of course, when they went out that morning, it was gone. And they're like, huh. Wow. And and one more case like that just reminds me, it was a guy I know who I interviewed was driving through the desert, and he had just burned his hand on the radiator. The engine overheated, and they drove up to a hospital out in the middle of the desert, nothing there. Went in, got treated, went back, and they're like, well, let's go see if that hospital, of course, wasn't there. That was a UFO. So it's interesting to me how people can perceive this as just a normal human structure. And another thing that I find interesting is you mentioned
it's a bit headaches. Like Taken, isn't it? Steven Spielberg. Like the famous Scream memories. Right.
And another thing I just find interesting, maybe Dolly, you can comment on this, is because you're talking about having headaches. Because I think Dolly, you at age 14 are trying to remember. You had this headache.
Oh, I had a giant headache. It would not stop. It was making me violently ill, and it impeded me from doing anything else until I sat down and started trying to replay. And the minute I started trying to do that, the headache lessened, and then memory started flooding back on me. It was almost like my brain was taking the situation over and forcing me to recapture what I was missing. You know, it was horrible. I spent all day in the headache until I actually went for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So crazy.
I mean,
Beginning to think-
my hair was falling out after I came back from Los Angeles. I was treated for radiation by my doctor. Yeah, it wasn't good. You've just gone
Wow.
down in sound, so I'm just going to put my headphones on. Actually,
Okay.
All right.
I can't hear you.
Yes, I'm wondering if the headache thing is related to the whole process of trying to get through that wall of amnesia. I mean, that's what it sounds like to me, because
Well,
you both had pretty
Dolores-
much the same experience.
I worked with her for 3 days, and I've got all of them on VHS. I was thinking of converting them actually, and I have not watched them since '97, so I don't really remember. But I was thinking of having them converted and putting them onto my website. And I was thinking of doing bits of that with Budd's hypnosis. So it'd be interesting, because obviously whatever I regressed back to, I've totally forgotten again, until all I remember is, until I'm ready to know.
Interesting. So this figure you saw in the backyard, was that just?
Yeah.
Did you see any detail to it, or was it just a shadowy figure? Could you see a face?
No,
or anything?
Yeah, definitely. He was just like the people from like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. He was just a man at the bottom of the garden, sort of a face. It didn't have a beard. He was just a face, because we had quite a long garden. I should have sent you the picture of the house and where the pump well was. But he would be just always in the same place. And I think from memory, it was about 4 or 5 times it had happened. And we then left there when I was 10. 12. I left there when I was 12. So it happened when I was a lot younger. Between 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Have you ever seen him again as an adult?
No, not at all. No. The only sort of similar to sort of like what I would perceive as like the Men in Black type of episode would be on my Brentwood LA encounter with the military helicopters and the Men in Black. I mean, you don't expect to have a UFO encounter with military helicopters and a Men in Black car, but it does happen.
Yeah.
So you saw that guy in the garden several times. More than
Excuse
once?
me, sorry.
You saw the guy
the man
in
in the garden.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
More than
yeah.
once?
Quite a few times. Yeah. Oh yeah, 4 or 5 times. Yeah.
When you moved, did you notice at all that I started noticing as a small child that other elements other than ET started showing up in my life? And I had a very dramatic incident where a man in black approached me and tried to grab me. And I had a friend with me, and we bolted and we ran. Have you ever had any instances like that in your lifetime where all of a sudden you know that you're being watched at all? Is that an occurrence for you?
As by beings or like government?
Yes, any government type.
Or both. Both. Well,
Okay.
So yeah, definitely growing up, I'd have out of body experiences in that house. I'd be able to learn to go out of my body and look up. I told you about that, Preston, tonight, and Dolly the other week. But I'd go out of my body and be able to look up, and also the little people. I would class them as the little people. I was that was probably ever my first ever encounter with what you'd call little people. And my dad said, "Don't worry, lots of people see, things that happen." And it was me and my old friend Marnie, where I used to live. We were camping in her garden, and we saw at night little people running up and down the rockery. I never actually regressed back to that. I didn't go back to that because I didn't think that I didn't need to go back to that. It was more like the Chinese girl that I wanted to go back to in the gazebo, and like my LA encounter. As for military, well, obviously I used to do conferences with Nick Pope. I contacted Nick when I came back from Los Angeles, and I had started doing a witness support group. And at the witness support group, they misconstrued my story and made it look so stupid. And I got so angry because it wouldn't, I'm thinking, no, you've made me look like a fool. The girl sees UFO, blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, I'm not having that. So I had contacted, my very first people that I contacted was people in MUFON and a guy called Ken Phillips. He was in England. He was a very well-known researcher in England. And he sort of like took me under his wing. And we used to write, back in the days, we used to write letters to each other. And I used to go up and visit him. And he told me who I could get in contact with. And then I got in contact with Nick. And because Nick worked at the UFO desk in London, between, I think it was 5 years he was there at the desk, I contacted him and I said, listen, you research and you go and speak to people that have had UFO sightings from pilots and witnesses, and more credible witnesses than the typical person next door. They've misconstrued my story. Would you please put something in the paper? In which he did. And so then the guys from the newspaper said, oh, okay, all right. And then I wanted to go and meet Nick, and he was at a conference in, I think it was, well, I don't really remember. I think it was Bristol or Wales or something, but that's where I first met him. And then I told him about my encounter. And he said, very interesting, the fact that it's military helicopters and men in black car and a craft right on the Los Angeles freeway. And at that point, I contacted MUFON. I spoke to Walt Andres on the phone. I've kept every single record of every letter that I wrote to somebody, every phone call that I've had with somebody. Well, back then, I've got the Walt Andreas in, when we spoke. And yeah, I just wouldn't let it lie, because even though I'd had encounters growing up, this was a really different encounter. This was sort of like the game changer for me. I'm thinking, no, I am not going to sit down. This is too incredible what has happened. And I was with a witness at the time. I just thought, no. And back then you had UFO magazines. There was lots of magazines out. The internet was sort of like starting out. I contacted you, Preston, via mail. You and snail mail back in the day. And, I then said to you, I'm ever so sorry. When I lived in Topanga shortly after my encounter, I was one of the ladies that took down your poster that was in Topanga Canyon. It had a UFO. If anyone had seen a UFO, please contact. I never had the guts to contact you at the time. But as soon as I came back to England, I thought, right, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do it properly.
Well, before we get to that, just going back to your childhood, so were you connecting this all to the UFO phenomena at that time, or was this just you didn't interpret it? Were you thinking these were UFOs, these are ETs, or?
Well, I used to see ghosts when I was younger. I used to be able to tell people, who was next to them, or they used to just materialize in front of me. I used to describe them fully. I never had clairaudience. I wasn't clairaudience. I could see, I could sense. Like I said, I used to love sometimes going to bed and having an out of body experience to see if I tidied up my room correctly, because I would go out of my body. And that's why I loved your book, Journeys Out of Body, that, as a kid, it was like a game. I could go into bed and I could get up, go high up, and astral project and look around my room, and it was amazing. To the point of, obviously, I had still astral go out of body, when I had other UFO experiences around the same time. I used to work with mediums, but no, I never connected the beings and the UFOs all together until I had my LA encounter. I heard telepathically a few things. And one of the things that I heard was, that it's all, I will know, it'll all come together. And when you know that, you'll know that it's like all the fragments of everything that had happened to me, then it clicked. And I'm like, oh my God, well, hang on a minute, the Chinese girl in the gazebo. Was that a UFO encounter? Because I never really thought of it as a UFO encounter, even though my brothers had both had UFO encounters where I, growing up. Mum hadn't, Dad hadn't, but both my brothers had. Yeah.
Amazing. So you never saw a UFO as a kid, just flying around?
No, but magical little things would happen to me. As you know, there was a great weird thing that happened to me as well. I used to in the same village. There was like a council estate. You'd walk out of my house, up a hill, through some fields to the council estate. I had some friends up there. We'd go and play in the day, and then at its home time, I'd walk home. I'd walk through the council estate, walk through the fields, and there was a little lane, a very small little lane between the lane and then my school, then down the hill, and my house was at the bottom of the hill. And I remember walking through mist, fog. It was just like fog and a mist. And I'm like, I was really scared. I'm like sort of rushing. I mean, I've got goosebumps as I say this, but I had well, I have got horrible when it happens, but I don't think of that encounter very often. But you know, something definitely happened there. And I've read many books where people open the doors, or there's a rolling mist that's rolling towards you, or you know, and something happens. That definitely was something. And it wasn't until I had the LA encounter then the pieces of the jigsaw sort of went together. Yeah.
All right. Very interesting. Well, yeah, let's go to the LA encounter, because that's the one that is so amazing.
Crazy. Yeah. I know. I'm blessed by having that encounter, because it's, you know, I think all of us are, aren't we, Dolly and Preston? You know, all of us that have had UFO encounters. I mean, how amazing. And, you know, all of my encounters, like all of your encounters, are all different. And all of our encounters are different. And each one teaches you something totally different. And so, Los Angeles, February 93. I'd taken a friend of mine for a job interview. She'd come over from England to try and look for work as a hairdresser. So this is all going to sound really posh, all of the names of it, all and everything, but took her to Rodeo Drive. Just a normal average day. Took her to, well, not an average day to me to go to Rodeo Drive, because I never shopped at Rodeo Drive or anything, but I took her there for an interview. So took her for an interview. The car park was in the car lot. I remember it was a circular car lot that kind of, as I drove back down, it made me feel a little bit dizzy as I went down. Drove out of Los Angeles, out towards on the 101 and 405 towards Brentwood. My area that I had to get to was Brentwood. Beautiful day, around about 10 to 6 at night, really lovely. Windows are down, just come off the off ramp. And I've just come off the off ramp. As you go down off the off ramp, turn around, and I'm now coming up, and the freeway is to the left of me. The Holiday Inn is over the bridge to the left of me. I can see it. I've got a car in front of me. I've got her, my friend. Well, her name's Jane, or it's Kelly. That's another discussion. And she's next to me. And prior to coming up the off ramp, I have what I feel is like the most like butterflies, adrenaline, my stomach. It's like a build up to something, like something's going to happen, And my hands, because we're at a sort of like just about to stop the car, because there's lights there before you go over the bridge, and there's a car in front of me. My hands are so heavily gripped to the steering wheel, like you wouldn't be able to, the world's strongest man wouldn't be able to prise them off the steering wheel. And like the feeling of like, what is this? And I'm not talking to her. And then you've got the part of your car, you've got your windscreen, you've got that chrome part of the bar, and then you've got which would be the window if I had my window up, and it'd be part of the door. All I remember is seeing something very silver just there. So on that sort of like that, on that triangular bit there. So then from that, I remember then just putting my face right up to the windscreen pretty much. And all I can describe it as is like this craft that's about like 45 foot in length, massive silver structure. And I know everyone says it, it's like you feel that you can touch it. It was that low that it felt like I could touch it. It was probably about 10, 11 meters away from me, if that. Above me, it was just by the car in front of me. So it's just probably the height of like the traffic light. It was that low. And I'm looking at it, and I then swear. Oh, I go, what the beep, and I go, my God. I'm like, oh yeah, well, we got a picture. There you go. Oh, see, there's my beauty, courtesy of Jim Ryan. We did an animation for that, but that's what happened. It was like that. So now I'm looking underneath this craft, and you've got that beautiful orange there. That was like exactly like that, and I was looking at it, and it had no wings. It had no foliage coming from it, and it was sort of like gliding. Like it was so heavy. I mean, God, how could it be doing this? I had no wings, like nothing coming out from it. It wasn't emitting anything, wasn't making any noise. And because I've swore, we're both now looking at it, and it's now going sort of like over the other car. It's going over to the right, and it's going towards UCLA College. So now I've got one car in front of me. Then it's probably a car away at that point, and then it's just at the bridge of the freeway, and then it goes towards right towards UCLA over by some trees. So, I mean, you can imagine, like, I not saying anything, absolutely mesmerized with her. We're seeing this. The car in front's going forward. I then go forward. I know that I can't make a right, but at this point, when I say like a telepathy type of thing, I've been told that or whether it's just like human instinct, like hunter-gatherer type of thing, I thought in my head, I've got to go up high. And I knew where to go, which I didn't know where to go because I don't know Brentwood that well. I'd been to the movie house there for a movie premiere once, but that's it. I don't know Brentwood that well. So as the car in front was moving, it went over the bridge to the left. I'm following it, and then I remember turning my head round and looking in the back window, and all I can say, and I always say it on it, but it's true, it's like seeing the back arse of it going through the tops of the trees. And still at that point, there's no wings, there's no foliage coming from it. And I've obviously still got that horrible feeling in my stomach and like the shakes. So we can see it. I then turn around, and then I'm like, I gotta get up high. So I drive, to the right, just over the bridge, just to the right. Holiday Inn's above me. I drive up that hill. I then get up to the top of the hill, and I say to my friend, I said, look, we're both going to get out at the same point, at the same time. We're both going to point in the same direction where we think it went. So obviously out in America, you drive on your left, but you drive on your left in your car. So she's next to me on the right. We both get out the car, and we both point, in the same direction. Well, as soon as she pointed, I'm like shaking. I'm like, so there's the Holiday Inn there. That's the bridge that I went over. And so I drive up high behind the Holiday Inn. So at that point, the Holiday Inn is directly down below me on the left as we're pointing, because that would be pointing towards UCLA. And I'm like, I am absolutely like, I don't know what to think. I'm not saying anything. I'm like in shock. I'm like, I can't see it. It's gone. And I'm like shaking. Now, didn't drink alcohol back then at all. Just smoked Marlboro Lights. Bad. California and all that, really bad. But so I remember then it's totally gone. We can't see it. I then drive down the road, make a right, go round the corner, and the house that I need to go to is just around the corner. I pull into the driveway, and there's lots of synchronicities with my UFO encounter, this UFO encounter, with other UFO encounters that I've had. They all kind of sometimes go back to this encounter, which is quite bizarre. But as we know, everything and all of this is connected. And so I get out of the car. I remember being really shaky. I remember holding myself up literally by the car, walking and steadying myself on the car, knock on her door. And she says, no, trying to be silly and being English. And, would I like to come in for a cup of tea? And I went, no, something has just happened. I'm going to go home. I then get back into the car. We're still not talking, me and Jane. And I go and pull my car out, and there in front of me is now this car. Now, my dad's had classic cars all of his life. I've grown up with the most beautifulest and the most weirdest classic cars all my life, and I love all American cars and all of that. But this car was in front of me, and this car was then again, it was like I was told as I saw this is being put here so I don't forget. Because you can forget UFO encounters, and we all know that you can forget UFO encounters. So there now in front of me is this sort of Men in Black car that I cannot see in. Its windows, and I did send it to you, I think, on an email. The windows were so thin, it was jet black, black. I couldn't see into it, and it was there. I mean, that's the closest sort of resemblance to the car that I saw. And it was just like, it shouldn't have been there. And I know it's Los Angeles, and I know it's sort of like not far from Hollywood, and you got, like movie sets and all of that. But it was like, I've already been frightened, and now I'm being frightened again. And I know my cars, and I know all of that. And as I'm looking at this car, and I've been told in my head, it's been put here so I don't forget. And I'm like, oh God. So it then moves off. Then it moves off, and I'm then back in the traffic, and then I am going around the road, and I'm going down the road, and then I'm going back onto the freeway. Now, because my window's wound down, I can just hear this roaring noise, and it's just roaring. And then I look up, and it's 4, 5 black military, no numbers on it, no nothing, helicopters going straight towards UCLA College. Now, one of them was so close to me that I remember seeing the rivets on it. It was that close. And I think that me and Dolly had a talk about this. Dolly asked, how was it flying? Well, it was tilted, as if to say it's in pursuit, and it was going, and it went straight in the same line as where the craft had gone. I remember driving back to my apartment in the Woodland Hills, and the synchronicity between this encounter and my other encounters is I had another UFO encounter here in England, and it was the day that Corey Haim had died who in the film Lost Boys. Corey Haim died in the same apartment block in the Woodland Hill Oakwood apartment where I used to live when I had this encounter in Los Angeles, and on the day that I had a UFO encounter in England, if that makes sense. And also the synchronicity someone pointed out to me of the apartment I went to was 9/11. The actual date of it was 9/11. And obviously my encounter happened in 93. So it was just a bit of another weird sort of like synchronicity. But I remember putting the TV on and seeing if there was anything on the news. I remember then seeing Jane looking at me in the mirror. And then the next day, I just said to my boyfriend at the time, Billy, who I had UFO experience with back here in England before, that you can forget, because I forgot that UFO experience. I just guys, you're not going to believe what's just happened. And I couldn't actually physically tell him. I did tell him in the end, but it was, I then, after that, I was so freaked out. I left Los Angeles after a couple of days. I then went to a place called Aptos in Santa Cruz, and went there for a bit. And then I moved to Topanga. And then in Topanga, I had another UFO encounter, hence why I stole your posters.
Before we get to that, can I ask you a question regarding? It's really unusual to have that close of an encounter, daylight on the freeway. Were there other cars around at the time that you were?
Yes, there was. Well, what I can't believe is no one else has come forward. And even though the girl that was with me, she left about 2 days later, and we never heard from her. We couldn't even track the girl down afterwards. You know, Billy knew her parents. Couldn't track down the parents. We couldn't track down where she was, because she could have been stayed out in America and was living out there. I tried to track down where she used to work in London. You know, it came as a dead end. The car in front, well, you'd hope they would, but no one's come forward with the same encounters that I have had.
I have a burning
people
question.
staying at the Holiday Inn. Yeah.
Did she say 2 words to you in the car at all? And after she got out, I mean, did she say
Not
anything?
really, no. No, I just not really. No, yeah. All I remember, you got to remember, I was in such shock. The only thing that I said that probably came out pretty much sensible was, we're both going to get out at the same point, at the same time, and point in the same direction. I mean, I don't say stuff like that, I'm a bit quirky. But I did, and she did point. We didn't talk on the way back. And all I just remember, Dolly, is her face in the mirror looking at me and me looking at her. And then I was so frightened after a couple of days, I just needed to get out of LA. I didn't want to look at anything. And then, like I said, then I ended up in sort of like Topanga Canyon, UFO capital, when it was having Topanga, heat wave.
So all these years have gone by, okay?
Yeah.
And you remember how you felt. You felt it approaching. You felt the fact that it was there. Do you have any other overall impression of why you saw what you saw? Is there anything in your mind that left an impression on you in any way, shape, or form that gave you an idea of why this happened the way it did?
Well, I believe that I had this encounter, such a big encounter, so I can be talking with you, so I can be talking with Preston, so we can talk about our UFO experiences to everybody. That, this is now, listen, we couldn't do this 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. My mum, when I came back from America, what on earth are you talking about? It's so important. I know that it involved military helicopters trying to intercept it, so I had that encounter, so I can go forward and talk about my UFO encounter with other experiences. That's what I am. I'm the same as yourself. I don't call myself an abductee. I've had all of my encounters have been fine. I have no problem with any of my encounters. None of them have been negative. Even the man at the bottom of the garden, wasn't negative.
Okay.
Well, so did you, when something comes that close to someone, when someone has a sighting that's within 100 feet, I've come to learn that that's usually more than just a sighting, that there's some level of contact there beyond seeing it. So did you have any dreams? Did you have any sense there might have been missing time or anything else that might add to that?
Well, under regression, yes. All I remember is like they're saying, the filming of the feeling of being totally overwhelmed, like static electricity, of like an adrenaline and a fear and a happiness, and like all of those emotions. And under the hypnosis with Budd, it was, I had been taken from the car. I had been taken through the steering wheel. I'm holding on to the steering wheel. I've taken through the steering wheel, through the front dash, through the engine components, and up. And then I was then placed in a field. And I'm in a field, which I couldn't find the picture, but it's on one of my videos that I did with Nick Pope, that I drew. I'm in a field with 3 beings. And those beings I felt very familiar with. And those beings, when I, speak about Topanga Canyon shortly, the Palladium beings with light beings, all I remember in there when I'm looking at them was like a hair transplant. They had like white long pieces of hair, very thin, very muscular, very I could see their veins. They were pink, iridescent veins. Very beautiful light beings, beautiful. I felt familiar with them. They had a baby, and they were holding a baby. Now, as you know, that with hypnosis, you try and get what you can out of the hypnosis. Bud was saying, and not leading at all in any way, but he was trying to say it in lots of different ways, is the baby yours? The baby wasn't about the baby, it was about the beings. And for myself, and which I know, like Kim Carlsberg, it is about the babies and presentations. To me, it's always been about the beings. And with like Dolly, it is the beings for me. They were familiar because I'd seen them before.
Do you have an overwhelming urge to every now and then for them to just show up? Like come to my house, sit in the living room, let's talk this through.
Well, I
like
have
that?
enough. Well, I get feelings too. I get feelings to say, get out the car, take a picture. And I said to you, Preston, you can take a picture, any of the pictures off my Facebook page that I've taken photographs of. There is a great picture that I took of light energy that I knew that I had to get out of the car. I knew that I had to point my phone in that direction, and took a lovely picture of it. That's happened a few times. I've got a few more pictures. It's sort of like a light being, but not in the form as of like what I would remember them from Los Angeles. Yeah,
so this is the picture.
That was yeah. So I was driving, and I just knew that in my head, you got to get out, you got to get out of the car. And I then literally pulled the car up right up to this bank, climbed up the bank, and then I took 2 snaps. And it was that one, and then there was another one. The other one didn't have anything on it, but it was that one. And then I've taken another one in the evening, late at night. I sort of like woke up, had been reading, and then then I went online and then was talking to somebody, and we were talking about walk-ins. I think I was saying about talking about Timothy Good and the experience that he had of like a walk-in. And then I just felt the urge again to take a photograph, and I hadn't sent you that one, Preston, but you can probably see that one on my Facebook page. That one's there, and it's
what do you think this one is? I mean, did you get any sense of what this?
No, not at all. But again, it's at that house where I lived. I had lots of UFO encounters with my son. My son's called Orion, and I would drive him bonkers. I'd say, Orion, quickly, come downstairs. He'd be like on his computer. I said, come downstairs now, quick, get down. He'd come downstairs. And one time I remember seeing like a fleet of them. There would have been too many for us to count.
When you snapped this particular picture, could you see it with your naked eye, or is it just only on the film picked up?
Yeah, no. So no, it came out on the film. No, I couldn't see that at all. It was like Topanga, and it was like in Brentwood. I knew that I had to get out, and just take a picture. It's sort of like an overwhelming film. It's a bit like your spirit guides next to you, right? Just take a picture. So I don't
I'll tell
know.
you a secret. ETs can mimic their backgrounds, okay? But at certain times of the day, they go into what I call, they fully cloak, okay, themselves. And you can't see it with your naked eye, but your camera can pick up the energy from it. And I've seen a lot of pictures in my day, and this one looks just like what they look like when they're cloaking. That's why I asked you, because you wouldn't be able to see them, but it's almost like spirit photography.
And you can see,
or they have it. It's EMP is what it is. It's electromagnetically pulsing, and you're seeing the pulse of the energy. So it's very cool.
You can see actually the top of the bank. So that's the top of the bank. So it was pretty much like probably a couple of feet away from me, really. Yeah.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Not bad. That's a good one.
I really wanted you to see that, Dolly.
Yeah, not bad. You really caught something there. You were lucky. That's cool. They let you have that. I guarantee it, because nobody I've never seen one like that ever. I can see them when I'm on board, but no, that's pretty good.
Well, and the fact that they called you out, I hear that all the time.
Yeah. I've got it. I've had that happen 3 times to me, and each time I've got something on camera. So But
you can see that the craft is in full tilt. That lets me know it's not level like this, it's tilted. And that lets me know it's actually facing facing away from you. And that would be, you're not in line of sight. That also made you able to get the picture. Okay, because the way the emitters work, it has to be away from you. So that's the second reason I believe I'm looking at the real deal. The third reason I believe I'm looking at it is because there is the energy that when they pulse like that goes down, because it's connecting with the ground. It's the energy of the ground coming up to the craft. It's the skiff. They're surfing it. And that's the wave that it's on. That's a real picture.
Well, there is a little, there's to the left of there, it looks like there's another light. So I was wondering if I didn't get another one next to it.
You probably did, because they never travel alone. They always travel in twos or threes.
No. Oh, I know. Yeah. Threes usually. Yeah.
And for those who can't see it, it does show this beautiful white sort of saucer globe-shaped thing with light coming down into a field. Yeah. It's really quite extraordinary.
Thank you. Beautiful. No, thanks, then.
You should put that on your header on your website, on your Facebook. Put it on your header.
Yeah.
So how long was it after that encounter on the freeway that you had the encounter in Topanga Canyon?
Right. So lots of, as you know, Topanga is quite a strange community. And I had a friend there called Pacer. He used to live there. So I used to frequently go and visit him. I would say roughly probably about 2-3 weeks. Because I remember leaving my place in the Woodland Hills, Oakwood Apartments. I then went to Aptos, which was high up in Santa Cruz, right in the Redwood Forest for a bit. And then we came back. I was staying with friends. And then we brought back a trailer from Santa Cruz, and we put it in Topanga. And it was the other side of the Inn of the Seventh Ray, which that lovely little restaurant. And so it was the valley side, not going towards the ocean side. And we actually moved it a few different places, but we had a friend that lived by the Inn of the Seventh Ray, and Seth, and he was very spiritual. And of course, I wasn't at the point of like probably really opening up about it, because I was still under shock. And I remember being at his place, and he had a extensive, like me and you, book collection, and I was looking at all his books, and it had Pleiades. It had it written, and I'm looking. I'm going, I know that word. Why do I know that word? And I think, and I kept looking, and all of a sudden I'm thinking, I know that word. I know that word. And then I'm having something build up yet again. Seth and a few friends were playing music. He played guitar. There's other people singing. And then I'm having that feeling again. Something's building up. Something's building up. I'm starting to feel uncomfortable again. And then I have in my head, I describe it as like a TV in my head. It's like I'm looking at tones like on a heart monitor, going up and down. And it was like a frequency was going fat to thin, fat to thin. And I connected it straight away. It took me straight to the craft in Los Angeles. I knew that it was connected to the craft in Los Angeles, and it was so loud in my head, and I could not get that image out of my head that I said to them, I said, shut up. And they looked at me and said, what is it? I said, can you not hear that? And they said, no. I said, you can't hear those tones. And Seth said so calmly to me, he said, B, you know what that is, go outside. And he lived down the road from the inn of the Seventh Ray, up on the left-hand side. And they had like peacocks roaming around, and it was quite magical where they were. And it was a sort of like getting late in the day. And I just thought, there is no way I am going outside. Because it was like I was being pulled to go outside, because I knew that if I was going to go outside, I was going to have another encounter. And I was not ready for an encounter. I knew that it was sort of like them sort of like calling me. And I was like, no, I'm not putting myself through that. And so I didn't go. But I did have unusual things happen to me in Topanga. And had to go and see Dr. Roy a few times, because there were things that just wasn't medically right with me. And I did go to see him, and which, because he was your doctor at the time, wasn't he, as well? You knew of him. And
I knew of him. He had an encounter himself. I interviewed him.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there was the big wave of sightings during that time.
Yeah.
Well, of course, from June 92 to June 90, through 94. And really beyond.
Yes, because my encounter in LA was February 93. It was the end of February 93. I don't know the date. I don't know the exact date for it, but it was the end of February 93. So I would have been March 93 in Topanga. So I was like in eye of the storm, basically, at that point. And that's amazing. Oh, you have to pass that encounter to me, and I'll have to read that. That's quite extraordinary.
Yeah, he basically saw a point of light moving swiftly across the sky that clearly wasn't a shooting star, because it was far too continuous, too slow for a shooting star, too fast for a plane. And it was on the actual night, June 14th, 1992, where some 30 people throughout the canyon in different locations. Actually, that number is going higher over the years. Saw stuff.
Wow.
So yeah, you were, like you say, in the eye of the storm, because cars were being chased on the road.
Yeah.
Stuff were landing in the fields.
I sent you some great pictures throughout the years. Obviously, I've collected anything that kind of resembles my encounter, or I could sort of like have a similarity to. And I sent you an email with like 3 really good pictures that were taken over the Pacific Palisades, and obviously down above Lucky's, the store down on PCH. I mean, real close encounters that people have taken these pictures of. So it was all happening around that area, wasn't it, at that time? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So we are at the midpoint of the show, so we do need to take a very quick station break. Dolores, you want to do that?
We are coming to you live. Well, not live streaming, because we are pre-recorded from the United Public Radio Network and the United Paranormal Radio Network, coming to you from New Orleans. It is 107.7 FM and 105.3 FM. And we just want to say hello to everybody out there. If you're in Radio Land, I hope that we're describing it properly to you and to everybody else who's watching us. We are in chat tonight during this show. So any questions you might have, we will answer on there. And that's it. Back to you, Preston.
Yeah, so you were describing, yeah, I've got a photo that we're going to flash on the screen here in a second of the one of the UFO over Lucky's. I know this photo.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this is similar to what you saw.
Yeah. 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 I mean, yeah, if it came above, if it was above that car in front of us, yeah. But that's a lovely, lovely picture. Definitely. Yeah.
And I know exactly where that is. I've been in that store.
Yeah, so do I. Yeah, so have I. Yeah. So that's and then there's another two other ones. I mean, there's quite a few that I have found, but I sort of like quickly sent, because if you think about it, where that was, Topanga was only behind it, really, wasn't it?
Yep.
You know, that's down right on the beach, but Topanga was, you know, over the hill, literally.
Yeah, so that's very, very close. And yeah, this is what a lot of people were describing to me as well. But you said other strange things happened in Topanga Canyon?
Yeah. So I remember it seems silly to say, but it was a very strange occurrence. Well, two things. A friend of mine in Topanga, she had an indoor rabbit, and indoor rabbits were quite in Topanga Canyon, to the point of when I came back to England, that's what I wanted. I wanted an indoor rabbit. But she had met a guy in Topanga, an older gentleman, and I have his card, and I will email it to you, because I'd be interested to know if I have emailed this to you many, many years ago. But she invited us around to hers for dinner, and she invited this gentleman. He was like a paranormal researcher. He didn't know about my encounter, and I didn't know that he was coming. She just said that she's inviting a group of friends, like-minded friends around. And he came around, and he was a lot older. He would have been in his, I was 23. He would have been probably in his 40s, late 40s, maybe early 50s. And he came round, and he brought nasturtiums. He brought all the flowers, edible flowers that you could eat, and it was magical. So, you know, she was vegan, vegetarian. She was, you know, we were putting it all in our salads, and I was quite taken by this bloke that, you know, this gentleman, he looked kind of out of place of being there, bringing flowers round for us to all eat and talk about. And I got his card afterwards, and I tried to find him years later, and, you know, he never kind of like existed. It was quite strange, but he gave me his card. It's a bit like the Chinese girl, you know, showing me her money. The guy didn't exist, but he was, you know, it said on his card he was authored in lots of different things. And then the other one was hitchhiker. I don't know if you looked into the link that I sent to you about Ontario, Canada. The gentleman that has the audio with Nefertiti, the Bigfoot, and his encounters. Well, it was kind of like that in Topanga, because it's so long and so windy. You do pick up people that are hitchhiking. I mean, Willie Nelson lived down the road. You know, it's hippie country to Topanga, totally. And we picked up a hitchhiker, and my friend was driving. I'm in the middle. We open the door. He comes in the car, and my God, I just didn't look to the right anymore. I just looked straight forward, because he wasn't right. There was something very unusual about him, and he didn't say anything to us. We got to the bottom of Topanga, where the Topanga home shop was, the Topanga stores, the homegrown, I think it was called. And we dropped him off there, and then he got out, and then it was just like the most strangest experience. And we afterwards, we just both looked at each other and goes, what on earth was that? I mean, he had hair everywhere. I mean, yes, he could have just been a hairy hitchhiker, but there was something very,
You mean like on
very
his arms
peculiar.
and legs and everywhere? Like hairy
Oh
arms
my God.
and-
I wouldn't even look to the right. I'd say I was being polite, but I as soon as he got in, I'm like, shit. Well, I just looked forward, and then we got to Topanga's store, and we just opened the door. Well, he opened the door and he got out and he just walked off into the night. It was like, oh, thanks. Yeah, Topanga. But lots of people have had lots of strange things happen in Topanga.
Yeah, I interviewed one guy who said he was driving along up on the higher ridges, Observation Drive, I think it was, and came upon a gentleman with a telescope. And he just stopped to see what he was doing and looked through the telescope, and it wasn't a normal telescope. It was extremely advanced technology, and the guy just kind of hinted that he was not from here. So,
I've got a few stories of those.
Yeah, there's a lot of
they're
them.
not my they're not my personal stories, but I've heard stories like that from other people. Sadly, a very good friend of mine, Robbie Graham, sadly passed away. He'd always wanted to see a crop circle, and weirdly a crop circle appeared near his house. And it's not sort of the country where you'd get the crop circle. I can't remember what the crop circle was called. And Robbie went to it, walked around it, went out of the crop circle, and there was a gentleman dressed in the wrong attire, dated like very 1950s, glasses, shirt, how he was wearing, had sort of like the camera around him. And Robbie said to him, you better go down there, go over the gate, walk down the field, and there's a fantastic crop circle for you to see. And Robbie said to me, it was like the guy couldn't speak English. He didn't know how to get into the field. He didn't know how to open a gate. And Robbie at that point started to feel very uncomfortable. And then he started to walk home very quickly. And the guy was walking very quick with him. And it was a bit like, Timothy Good as well. He'd had encounters before with a bookstore, wasn't it? With what he called, like a being trying to be looking like a human. But Robbie said that was the most extraordinary encounter that he'd had.
Yeah, well, going back real quick, because there's one story that you referenced it. At the time I was doing the Topanga Canyon investigation, I was going full out. I was going door to door.
Yeah.
I was calling up people on the phone. I'd gone to the police, giving them my number, and I was putting up this flyer with this UFO. It says, "Have you seen me?"
Yeah.
And I was putting up on all the bulletin boards. And darned if those things weren't disappearing as fast as I could pick them up.
I know. I know.
And you.
Now, I tell you, me, definitely. But that is how we're talking all of these years later.
Yeah, and you're the only one who called him. The only one. Nobody else called him about those flyers. You did.
No. Oh, well, I did. Well, back in the days, I sent him a letter. I sent a Preston letter, but more to the point of when you had Christine on a couple of weeks ago, you were talking about her paintings. Can I show my painting from Christine?
Yes.
Yeah, of course.
Right, let's hope. Because this was from the TV show Roswell High. And they were auctioning a load of things from Roswell High. And I absolutely loved Roswell High, the TV show. So I got this. And then I realized again it was a connection to Preston, because I then looked up who signed it, who had done it, and it said Christine done it, and I'm like, oh. And then I had the Art of Close Encounters book, and I was like, what? And then it linked again. So my picture is from Roswell High, the TV show. So I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, hold it still just a second. Yeah, absolutely. That's gorgeous. I can see the UFO there on the left side. It's a forest scene. There's people standing there. Yeah. Cabin in the back.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
So that is my wonderful oil painting from Christine. Yeah, from the TV show Roswell. Yeah. And I love that. It's up with my other UFO paintings, all up on the wall, along with everything else that's UFO related in the house.
The synchronicities in this field I know Dolly has talked about that in her life, how, being a nurse, she'd be put in scenes where she was there to help people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing
Yeah.
synchronicities.
All nurses carry emergency equipment with them in their cars.
Yeah.
I had a full med kit with an ambu bag and everything, and I never thought about it. And the first time it happened to me, I was only a nurse for about a year and a half, and I was on 285 in Atlanta, and there was this huge 30-car pileup right in front of us. And I'm staring at it. I came to a full stop. I pulled off as good as I could because I didn't want anybody else hitting me. And I thought, oh my God. And boom, my head said, get it now. And I pulled it out and I went running up into the fray, and I took care of about 4 people who were desperately in need of care. And this was in the day when there were no cell phones, none.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to me how help arrived so quickly. We were close to the hospital where I worked, actually, on 285. And
Yeah.
I thought, oh my God, thank God I put this in my car. And it just kept happening to me. I'd have 2 or 3 a year after that for the rest of my life. I'm not kidding. All the way up through Georgia and Florida. I mean, it's crazy. And it's, I often think about why I'm there. And then I realized I put the intention there. I will always help, no matter what.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to make a comment about you right now because I'm dying to, okay?
Ooh, yeah. I won't listen.
One of the things that I realized about you about 2 hours into the interview that we had, 4 hours.
Out of 4 hours, 4 hours we spoke for. My God.
I don't meet many people who are fully conscious like I am, okay? But I haven't really met anybody who gets it yet either until I met you. And I fully realized that you are on a mission. I don't know if you understand what that is yet. You might. That is, some of us, we do different things for ET. And one of them is bringing the message out. And you stated it very clearly during our interview and tonight. Thank you very much. That it's your support and help. That's very important. And then I realized that I was looking for a certain type, and then I realized, whoop, I made a mistake. It's not a type. It's anybody with that ability that you have. Okay.
Yeah.
Your entire life talks to it completely. And I do know for sure that you're going to wake up and completely with everything intact. You won't need hypnosis at all. It's just going to happen.
Yeah.
And you'll know what to do at the time.
Well, you said something to me that you said to me that I just need to pause. I need to sort of be quiet and ask to remember.
Yes.
So with that, obviously I've documented pretty much everything that's ever happened to me, but I also documented a lot of my dream states. And after a couple of days of us speaking, I was sort of like thinking, okay, all right, come on, what do I remember? And I went to some books that I used to write all my journal bits and bobs in, and I've written them down in dream form because I am psychic with my mum. Both my parents, mum and dad, have passed away. If my mum comes to me in a dream, she'll tell me things, and whatever she tells me is pretty much true. And then I've told my brothers, and my brother goes, well, how do you know? And I said, well, mum told me last night. So I have dreams of being on craft. And I remember one in particular that I'm in this craft, and then I'm just going towards the window, and the window is absolutely one of those massive windows. It's all white. Everything's bright white. And I'm looking out, and I'm looking down out onto Earth. I can see Earth, and I can see that that's what I'm looking at. And I just put it down to dream state. So, but the UFO dreams that I have, some have been like where I've been helping and assisting in UFOs and with craft, or assisting and helping because I am that I'm a people person, so I am helping them by doing what they want me to do. It's generally I'm the observer, but I'm there as the observer, if that makes sense. It's a bit like healing, isn't it? That you're there to just sort of transmit that energy to know. It's a bit like everything's okay. you know, and I'm a familiar. I'm a familiar to like to other I don't say abductees because I don't like that word, you know, experiences. You know, we all connect and we all have that empathy and that knowing, and I don't like it when people say, well, I've got a very good friend that's had an encounter that wasn't very nice, and I wish that we were all on that level, which say, you know what, we're all fine, you know, and we are all here to speak our truth, and to say that, you know what, you know, the government, we are the disclosure. We are the disclosure, the people that are having the experiences,
Yeah,
you know, and for
you.
what I hate, let's clip ourselves, you know, that's what we are, you know, we are the disclosure. We always knew that we were going to have the last laugh on everybody. You know, people like saying, oh my God, B, you were so right. The government have come out and said about the Tic Tac, blah, blah. Are you joking me? It's like we are going to have more encounters. You know, I had an encounter in October last year. I had 2 over a course of a couple of weeks. You know, things are changing. That I'm going to smart myself up. Dolly, I'm going to start videoing, you know, I'm going to start doing these things now, because now is the time for me to do that. If they're consciously allowing me to take pictures, and intuitively I know when they're around and what's happening, I am going to do that, you know. I
want to tell you something. You gotta hear what I'm saying now, okay? If you're seeing things in the sky now, you need to question what it is. Do take pictures of it, because the governments are putting their equipment up now, and they're going out with it, and they're showing themselves to everybody and pretending to be ETs, and they're not.
Oh, I know, but you know ET that feeling, but
ET is not in our solar system right now. They cannot be. They would crash. All the crashes over all the years are because our magnetosphere has been messed up, and it got so bad in the last 4 years that they decided that's it. And about a year and a half ago, the last of them left. They are not here. Okay, so if you're seeing something in the skies, it is not them. It is not okay.
No, it was. I said it to you. I had gone for a hearing test, didn't I? And it was a vibrational thing that had happened to me. And it's a bit like the Topanga tones. Maybe that the tones that I heard when I was having the hearing test that evening, light outside my bedroom window, bright red light. I had 3 things that were next to me, which when I have had beings next to me, they have always been the 3 of them. And then about a week later or 2 weeks later, I had, if everyone watches, you know, the hunt, the Skinwalker Ranch, they picked up a orb, beautiful orb that was just flying through through a pasture. I had that come to my bathroom window, came up, waited, and went back again. So as in that
orb that you gave Preston, by the way, is there a Preston?
We showed the best.
Oh, that's the one you were talking about. Okay.
Yeah. No, I have got pictures of orbs that I did send to Preston. That was when I was at McMinnville. I went to go and see what I call Bigfoot Andy. Yeah, Andy and his father. His father had written actually a Bigfoot book, and Andy had Bigfoot encounter with his sister. I went to go and visit him. He became one of my sort of Facebook friends, and I went over to visit him because I went to Isetti Ranch as well, and that was quite amazing. I mean, you'd see lights, green lights coming out of, I don't know if it was I think it's Mount Hood, isn't it, from there? Mount Hood, Mount Shasta, Mount Rainier, isn't it? Mount Hood it was, you know, coming out. And then I would be able to, I would say to, because it was Mr. Gillingham, wasn't it? Gillingland? Is it Gillingham?
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's not.
Well, he was just about to go on and do his radio show that he has there. And so I said, look, it's going to go over to that star. And the few people that were there that were all sitting down on chairs, it just went into that star that I said, and then blinked out. And then another one came out. I said, and it's going to now go to that one. So it's like a telepathy. It was either playing with me or I was playing with it. It did exactly what I said.
Yeah.
So there's the orb picture that you were talking about. You can see you standing
Yeah.
in the forest scene, and there's a beautiful
Oh,
bright
okay.
old
I
deer,
gave you that
right?
one. Okay. No, there's another one. I thought I sent you the other one. There's another one that is absolutely. It's like we're swimming in a mist of them. They're absolutely all around us, and you can see all of like the little indentations in each orb. It's quite amazing. Yeah, that
Oh,
one's
wow.
just the one. But when I was with him, we went down by this misused sort of like what was it? An old airstrip, and where he had had an UFO encounter, and then above us flew these silver balls. So they were smaller than a basketball, and bigger than a tennis ball. They were just they flew above our heads really low, as we were picking blackberries and eating them. And yeah, so we had an encounter together.
Oh yeah, you have to pick blackberries if you're in Oregon.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
That's important.
So another
food for
question I
free,
wanted to
isn't it?
ask you.
Yeah.
Brigitte,
Yeah.
another question I wanted to ask
Yeah.
you, because this is something I like
Yeah.
to ask all experiencers. And it's certainly true
Yeah.
with Dolly, and I think it's true with a
Yeah.
lot of experiences, is a connection to animals. How do you feel?
Oh.
Have you had any unusual animal experiences?
Oh yes. Well, I've had dogs. I had an indoor rabbit called Kipu. I'll tell you her experience in a minute. And my beautiful love of my life, Griffin, my ginger cat, Tom, 17 years. He passed away last year, and then I inherited a feral cat called Custodian, named after one of Dolores Cannon's books, The Custodians. A feral little thing, lovely thing. And I've had horses. But yes, I have had a spiritual connection with my indoor rabbit. So I had Kipu for 9 years, and why I got Kipu is because of Topanga Canyon, because my friends had indoor rabbits there. And Kipu didn't know if she was a cat, dog, horse, human, or whatever, rabbit. She used to sleep on the bed. She used to actually hog the fireplace. Used to play buckaroo with her, where you could put a little book, a little bit of chocolate on her, or a little TV remote, until she played buckaroo and then would run off. She would come and eat Terry chocolate orange out of it. That's an English chocolate. Terry's chocolate oranges. She'd nibble it and eat it from my mouth. Well, Kipu got riddled with cancer towards the end, and she started having fits. And so I made the decision to have Kipu put to sleep, and I wanted Kipu put to sleep at my house. And my ex-husband, he was a scientist, and so he's very black and white. I'm literally the grey area in the middle, and so no pun on the greys at all. But so he was with me, and the vet was with me. So we lived in an old chapel, and that chapel the sitting room was upstairs, the kitchen was downstairs. So I heard the kitchen radio was on downstairs. Upstairs, we had the TV on in the background. Obviously, I'm not enjoying this scenario at all, and obviously very upset. Kipu's on my lap. They go put the injection into Kipu, and Kipu needed that little bit more in her. So he gave her another dose of the injection, and then she passed away. The second that she took her last breath on me, the whole electricity in the house blew. Everything went as she took her last breath. So everything went off, all the power, no TV in the sitting room, everything's downstairs, everything. And they were shocked. They were like, whoa. And I went, and I was so calm, because obviously Kipu's on my lap. And I just said, I don't expect her to go any other way but like that, because it was such a spiritual thing. And obviously the vet, he's quite scientific, and then Stephen, he was scientific. They couldn't believe that, but she took all of the energy of her passing and took the electricity in the house out.
Amazing.
I love animals.
Yeah, Dolly is a former zookeeper and has a whole book full of amazing animal stories.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, my
wow.
favorite
wow.
one is a gibbon named Sarah. And we had her from 4 weeks old, and she stopped thriving, and we were trying everything, and she wouldn't eat, and brought her to the vet, and the vet said she has leukemia. And a frantic search began because we knew she had siblings, full siblings, and it took us a month of giving her every holistic thing we could think of, plus the vet doing support with her to keep her viable enough for a bone marrow transplant after we found a donor. And we did. She had a brother, and they were 100% match. And we were going to go from Florida to Auburn University Hospital, veterinary school there. And I was frantic. I was emotionally freaking out. You fall in love with your babies. And I was in New Tampa at a friend's house, and when I went up to get in the car to get home, it just exploded in my head. I knew that they could help her, okay, and I made a frantic, beg, please, I can't go through this. Don't make me go through this. Don't make us lose this baby. We loved her very much. And all of a sudden, a drone showed up, and it followed me all the way back to the zoo. And when I got to the zoo, it went down into, it's a big 50-acre zoo, and we have a forested area, and it went down into the forested area and twinked out. And I thought, oh my God. Well, went home that night, tried to feed her, took care of her, and we got up the next morning, and she's sitting in her we had a little, how you have those giant dog boxes for your giant dogs? That's what she had. And she had a huge bed in there, a crate, only it was open all the way around. It was all mesh, so we could see her all the way around. And she was sitting up, and she's like, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? And standing there in dead shock, could not believe what we were looking at. Got her a bottle. She drank about 4 ounces, which was wow, because we couldn't get her to drink half an ounce to an ounce before that. And she thrived after that. She grew up. She's a beautiful girl. She's never had babies of her own, but she's taken care of every other monkey baby in the zoo. And
I've got a dozen cases like that of cats, dogs being healed, horses, all different
humans too.
Yes,
course.
absolutely.
Us as well. Us when we need it.
That's right. We do. That's right.
I said to you, I'd had a major operation, and my ex-husband, he had taken the children away, and Orion, my eldest son, had stayed with me. I'd made sure all of the food, I'd cooked all the food, it was all in the freezer, so he knew what to take out when I needed it. If I needed to go to the toilet, my son had to help me go to the toilet. But I had a big wardrobe, and it was closed, no gaps, nothing. That next morning, after the operation, after I got home, the wardrobe was open, and it was like, it's a bit like them sort of like leaving me a note. They might as well have left me a note that we've been to visit you, because there was absolutely no way that I could have, my son Orion didn't come in the room and open those doors, because there was no need. And it was just one of those confirmations, we've seen you. I spoke about that on my the video that I did with the conference that I did with Nick. It was on there. That's on the website as well.
Well, I know you did a drawing. Yeah, you did a drawing of the Greys, which I think is just lovely, and I want to get you to comment on that, because that's going to flash on the screen shortly.
Well, I couldn't find the other one. Find the other one. That is on the this is so old. It's like, oh my gosh, I need to go to Christine's painting class, I think. Oh God. Right. So what you can't see there very well is it's more about his hair, if that makes sense. It was like implants in rows. The hair was in rows. And what you can't see on that as well is like the little veins on him and things like that on them. There's 3 of them, actually. There's another one over on the right hand side, but that I did about 25 years ago. But there is another proper picture of like the child presentation I couldn't find that one today for you, but that's somewhere around. But that is on one of the conferences that I did with Nick. But yeah, it was more about the transplant and the veins on them. You know, they're living beings, they're energy beings. Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. Well, another thing I would love for you to talk about, because it's just such an interesting story, is you had that whole experience at Area 51. I know you did a documentary where they did, you know, I watched it.
Yeah.
You were lovely
Oh,
on
dear.
it. You were brilliant. They were pretty skeptical at points. But yeah, you had this awesome, just interesting experience at Area 51 in Nevada.
Yeah, well, yeah. So basically, when was it? It was in 2012. BBC got in touch with me to see if I would like to take part in a conspiracy road trip. They did 4 different types of ones. I think they did one on 9/11. They did one on sort of like cults. They wanted to do a UFO road trip. So they contacted me, would I like to be a part of it? And I said, yeah, of course, I will give it a go. And they said, right, we're going to take you back to where you had your UFO encounter. And we're going to go from there, and we're going to go meet loads of people. So we met some very, very interesting people. Steph Sachakovic, is it? And there's a lovely lady. She actually, I did write down her name, and I bet you I can't find it. Basically, yes, I got arrested at Area 51. That's the bottom line. What happened is we decided, because it was like a load of school kids. We went with a comedian and a very well-known stand-up Irish comedian. So we thought that we were going to go to Area 51 and just have a look around. We were going to go to the gate and everything, and just have a look around, nothing more. But then it turned into something. It then turned into, oh, hang on a minute. Well, yeah, we've seen all of these sort of like shows where you can, so that's all of us. So Andrew Maxwell is the comedian in the white T-shirt. And then there's all of us plonkers all there. And so they decided to take me on day one back to my, where I'd had my UFO encounter. As you know, when you're doing any TV shows or anything, it's about the it's all in the timing, you know, and we had to do it quite quickly to move on to somewhere else, because we did a road trip from there, LA, to Vegas, and we met loads of great people along the way. What's that? I can't remember the name of there's a really good lady. Oh, Annie Jacobs. She said something to me. That was it. So we met Annie Jacobs. She said something to me. She goes, did I ever, for once, think it was a military craft? Nobody in all of the years had ever asked me that. And I just sort of like paused, because as you know, the military are very good at setting anything up, giving lots of false information. And yes, they can set something up. You know, it's like Hollywood where we were, for God's sake. But, ooh, something moved over there in my UFO corner. Funny. And they're here. They're here. And I just said no. There was no doubt that it was, because of obviously the vastness of it, the heaviness of it. It had no foliage, no nothing. So I said no, it definitely wasn't. And I knew in my heart, all of the feelings, it was a real encounter. And so what happened is we're at the gates of Area 51, and you've got that gate that goes down, and then you've got another gate that you can see right in the distance, and then you've got like a little building block that looks like a little outside toilet, little shed on the right hand side. You can see the trucks to the right up in the mountains. You can see the cameras everywhere, and you know that there's microphones underneath the ground and everything. So we just go a little bit crazy. So Andrew Maxwell, being a stand-up comedian, says, well, shall we dance into Area 51? and we just all laughed. We went, yeah, all right then. So we went underneath that bit that flips up. We went underneath there. And then we started being really stupid, doing little dances and everything. And then I remember me and Andrew, and then the camera guy, he then went nearer and nearer to that building, which looked like an outside toilet little shed. Went nearer and nearer to it, and then we could see there was a couple of guys behind some blinds there, and it looked like they were watching baseball. So I kind of started laughing, thinking, God, come all this way to Area 51, and there's a couple of like guards watching baseball. I mean, that's quite a typical sort of like English thing with guys. And so, well, then we decided, the camera guy, I forgot his name now, and I'm really sorry. He then said, I'm going to go and knock on the door then. So I'm like, well, go on then. Come on, I'll go behind you. So he went and knocked at the door. He had the camera in his hand, like filming. And a few of the others, one of the girls ran back to the minibus that was over the other side of the correct side of Area 51. Ran back. She thought, she literally, I could swear, but she thought, right, I'm going back. And all of the rest of us are there. So cameraman's just knocked on the door. I'm directly behind him. And then all of a sudden, literally, these two big guys, got up, come to the door, ran to the door, on the floor now. And literally, we're like, what are you on about? What are you on about? On the floor now, on the floor now. We had guns. Get on the floor, sit on the floor. So we had sat on the floor. Then they said, right, face to the ground, face to the ground. We are lined up not like sardines. We are lined up probably 2.5 meters apart. There's about 8 of us, 7 or 8, or how many's there in the picture, I can't remember. All of us lined up like 2 meters, 3 meters apart, from 2 guys being in this little booth. Then it's very apparent that they come from down below, because then they came, loads of them, about 6, 7, 8, 9, and now there's like 10 of them now with us, and we're on the floor. And if I can't say that I was bricking myself, I would be lying, because I absolutely was. I thought to myself, oh, shit, I don't know. And my first panic was, oh my God. And they said, phones out, get everything out, flick your phone on the floor. So we had to push all of our cameras, phones, anything we had in our pockets on the floor. They're patting us down for weapons, like we're going to carry guns. And they, they kicked all of our phones out the way and everything. And I'm thinking, oh God, I don't even know my son's number. Oh my God, this is so wrong. I'm never going to see my kids again. It says don't go, penalty, imprisonment, all of those things. I'm like, oh God. So now there's loads of them there. That the cars, the trucks are driving down, all these cars coming from all these different things. Everyone's on their walkie-talkies, blah, blah, talking, guns still in our faces, to our backs. So now it's getting dark. So this is like 3 hours later. We're then allowed to sit up. We're allowed to sit up. I cheekily asked one of the guys for a cigarette, and he gave me a cigarette. I hadn't smoked for a long time, but I wanted one. So
I can imagine, yeah. You deserve one.
So, yeah, they allowed us, if we needed to go to the toilet, they walked us to the toilet and waited outside the toilet with us, which was there. So they've got our phones, they've got absolutely everything on us. They wanted to know everything, where we live, blah, blah, why we were here. They took all of the camera equipment away from Barney Broomfield, the cameraman. He's the naughty one. He's the one that got us into trouble, and Max, and Andrew Maxwell, naughty. And so now, like, it's getting dark. It's getting cold. It's really cold on the floor in the middle of Area 51. So they then said to us, right, who's got ID? So some of us had ID, some of us didn't. So they walked us then back to one by one. They had everything on us. I then went to go back to the truck, the big minibus that we were doing this road trip with. Went back to the minibus. went to go and get my passport, and I just looked. I was like, "Oh, I've got a camera. I've got a camera. Quick!" So I then got my passport, walked to the front of the camera, which had the girl that ran off, Frankie. She was in there, like, "Oh my God, are you guys all right? Are you guys all right?" I'm like, "No, this isn't cool. This is so not cool." And then the coach driver, he was just like in shock. I just then put the camera quite low down and took 2 pictures and say, "Just keep my camera." Right. So he had my camera, and then I walked down the steps and went out. So you've got the 2 pictures. I think I sent you the pictures. So I had evidence that we had then been, arrested at Area 51. So what had happened then is, one by one, and it was a long time, one by one, we then had to go over the other side of that bit where we originally went under and got told off and arrested. We had to go back to there, and then we got given, which I didn't send to you, but it's on my website. Actually, it's it. Well, but you won't be able to see it anyway. My ticket, my arrest sheet for Area 51, and
Wow.
it says everything about me. It says everything about me. It gives me do not enter military installment. Oops. And that was my timetable of what we did that day. But everything is there. And how they did it was, the BBC had to pay a heavy fine for all of us. And we had the camera equipment taken away from us. But then they did get it back. And then that was put into the TV show. So, yeah, you've got my arrest papers here, and to say that I had got arrested there, blah, blah, blah. But they call it the boundary, I think, of Rachel and whatever the address says on it. They didn't say.
Yeah, it was just a few years,
anyway.
some years back, that there was a whole campaign to storm Area 51.
Oh yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah. Yes, I did. Yes, I kind of followed it just to see what would happen. But let me tell you, out of all of us, it was crazy. The camera girl was crying. To be honest, it is like quite frightening. And it went as high as the White House. We got told it went as high as the White House. They had to contact the White House to see what they could do, to see how they were going to deal with the situation. In which and then, like I said, we could hear helicopters out for us and everything as well. Anyway, then we all got back onto the bus. So about 5-6 hours later, we're all back onto the bus, and we're like, I remember the busman driving away, and Andrew Maxwell, being a total comedian, you actually need comedy after something like that. He was absolutely phenomenal. He's going, "Oh my God, we crashed Area 51. We danced into Area 51. He goes, "Not many people have done it." But we were then followed that night. We were then followed to where we were staying. We kept having the cars that were patrolling all of where the little places we were staying at, the little community we were staying at. The next day, we went to the memorabilia place there. There's an Area 51 big sort of like museum.
Alien, I think.
Yeah, we went there, but we went to this other place. It's sort of like a big museum. Looks like a massive corrugated sort of like tin shed with everything in it that you can buy. Well, we were followed there, and we had a car that came right up to us. They would get out, and literally from here to my kitchen, someone would be there, and they would be pointing a camera at your face, taking a picture, getting back in the car and going. And then, so for 2 days, we were followed around wherever we next went. So on our last night, before we flew out, they only wanted to go back there. So we went back to the black box, the black mailbox. And that's on the TV documentary on the website. That's on there. So what they were doing, they were flying jets at speed of sound. And the guys didn't know what it was. I said, that's a sonic boom, because you could just see the afterburners of it flying. They go, oh my God, what's that? What's that? I said, you're going to hear a sonic boom. And then you'd have the sonic boom. And yeah, well, I got arrested at
passport after that? Did that affect your ability to re-enter this country with your passport?
Well, no, thankfully. And do you know what, Dolly? I was so scared that it would, because I support all of the American holidays, and I know that this is going to be going out on Memorial Day. You know how fantastic, and I know that I support all the American holidays, because I kind of feel more American than I do English at the best of times. But I was so afraid of that, because I would be absolutely so upset with myself if I couldn't. But no, I've been backwards and forth quite a few times and nothing's come up. No, thankfully.
Fantastic. Okay.
Oh, well, I think that just goes to show that, Area 1, it shows several things. One, Area 51 is a real place. Those signs do mean do not enter, use of deadly force authorized. But also it shows our government is paying close attention to contactees and to the media that covers this in any way. Yeah. So this is a serious subject in the highest circles. It doesn't surprise me that we're trying to decide, well, how are we going to deal with these people? This is going to go on TV.
Totally. Yeah, definitely. And Andrew, he's been quite vocal about it as well, because obviously at the time, because that was like 2012, he's been on TV shows being a comedian. He'll either put that in his comedy act, because it's sort of like on the tick list, isn't it? It's like, what have you done so stupid? Well, I have done this and this, and I could say that I've done it, right?
Yes, absolutely. You've probably done a lot more than a lot of people have in this country at that gate.
Yeah. I would never do it again.
Probably a good idea. Well, we've got about 15 minutes or so left. And one thing I do want to touch on, because I keep looking at your books, and I've got mine. We got the same exact bookshelves. So when did you start collecting? Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I've probably got 1,000 books or so.
More.
And when did you start collecting books? And was that like part of your whole journey?
Well, funny enough, I have my original book that I bought when I was 15, 16. I used to work a Saturday job in a bookshop. And it's called the UFO Handbook by Alan Hendry. It's just about if you see UFOs, which is quite strange that I've got my original one. And I then remember Light Years came out, the Edward Meyer. So when I had my sighting, and because it was like a Palladian craft in LA, that's how I knew the word Palladian, because in Light Years, for Edward Meyer, he used to talk about the Palladians. So my book is very extensive. So I have all of those all going all up. Then we have all of I don't know if I can see it. Hang on. I don't know if you can. Can you see it all? I got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, and more. Like I think between us, we've probably pretty much got all of them, haven't we? I've got some of the rarest and some of the ones that never came into circulation. Some that are like corrector's proofs, and all of the every single flying saucer review. I never stopped collecting, and so I've been doing it a long time, a long time. So I think a lot of researchers. So I've had Steve Bassett came over to visit, and Mike Cleland, he came over to do some research and borrowed some of my books, and because I got put in, because I had an experience with an owl, and it was UFO related. That went into his book. So people come to me to ask if they can, if I can, photocopy or, for research, because, like you, Preston, we've got a lot of books. Amazing
Yeah.
books, amazing books. I love them.
You know, we did a show previously with Michael Schratt, and he kept asking me, can I come up? Because I had the entire collection of the UFO news clipping service. And I told him about a couple of articles I read.
Yeah.
So I've got loads of clippings as well, because that's, you know, when I talked to you the other day, you were saying about news clippings. Well, I've got absolutely loads as well. I've got things that I think would probably be more valuable to yourself because they are of encounters here in England. I don't need them. I'm more than happy to photograph them and you use them for research purposes because I got loads. And I also inherited, you know, quite a lot of Nick Pope's books when he moved to the States. So I did inherit a lot of Nick's stuff as well. So, you know, collectively, you know, we've got a lot of stuff. And also I love when you buy books that people leave little notes in it, or they when they write in it, or they've put something in it that's quite personal to them. You know, when you find that in a book, and you just think, only the other day I was in Glastonbury and I picked up a couple of books I didn't have. And in those books, someone had a little clipping in there of about a UFO on the motorway here in England. And it's such an old clipping. And you just think, oh wow. That's just so precious, isn't it?
Yeah, it's amazing. We were talking about how some of the older copies we have are absolute collector's items and worth money.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Oh, horrendous. Oh, yeah. I mean, you know, the value, as you know, it's like classic cars. They're just going up and up. I mean, you know, like you've said it as well. Me and you were talking about our books the other day, and you know, if you go and look on a book, like one of them's like £800, and you just think, my God, you know, and then they are going up all the time. UFO books now, obviously.
Some of Preston's books are astonishingly going up. Went out on
eBay,
went looking to see, and oh my God, they're reselling it.
Yeah, I know. What I do is got him.
Yeah, my book UFOs over Topanga. Someone says,
yeah,
you know, do you have a copy? Because it's for sale on Amazon for like $200, $300. I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
It went out of
tell
print.
You what was. Well, I do have UFOs over Topanga, obviously, and actually, I've got about 6. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of your books. When did I buy that one? Because I usually generally write in them when I bought it. Oh, Roger Lear's written in this one for me. He put to Bridget, from the aliens and the scalpel, please be at peace with the universe. Good luck and peace. Love, Roger Lear. And I got that in 1999, September 99. Yeah, good old Roger Lear. Yeah. But I picked a book up the other day, Flying Saucers over Los Angeles, I didn't have. So I am so looking forward to reading that one.
I have that one.
It's an old one. Yeah.
That's got 2 authors. I can't quite remember who they were, but
yeah. Excited.
It's amazing.
But it doesn't have my encounter in it, does it?
I don't think so. But it's amazing because, you know, I've talked to a lot of people. I don't know that I've ever met anyone who's as enthusiastic and has such a collection as you do. So,
I am.
Share that.
I know that it's like having a giant spaceship in the house, isn't it? It's just like amazing.
Now, when you came up on the screen when we had our meeting, and I'm looking at the books, and I'm thinking, is that a background or is that really hers? And you said it's mine, and I was like, oh,
no, I can pick that. They all move.
Yeah.
I know. I did hear from somebody, and I was so shocked. Someone said to me that during lockdown, people were buying books and books and books to make themselves look more important when they were doing conferences. And I was just like devastated. I'm thinking, because I am such a book lover, I'm thinking, oh, that's just horrible to hear that. That's just devastating.
Wow. Well, we have like 5 minutes left. Did we cover everything that you wanted to talk about?
I don't know, but ask me anything.
The owl encounter with Mike, the one that you said when you
right, okay. Yeah. So that was weird because that was very strange. I was sort of like in between, sort of like writing a book, and I needed a printer and a scanner. So I decided to go to the store, go into a place called Plymouth, go to a shop and go and buy one. So it was like on a Sunday, I decided to go there. And the house that I was living in, I'd had an encounter there at night with this massive, like I said to you, it was this massive light that was very big next to my car. It didn't illuminate my car. It didn't illuminate the floor. It didn't even illuminate the bush that it was next to. But bit by bit by bit, it went like just dimmer and dimmer and dimmer. I mean, I called my son downstairs. We're watching it, and he'd go, "What is it, Mum?" And I said, "I don't know." And then it just dimmed and dimmed and dimmed, and then just went. Well, I needed to go and get a printer scanner. Went to the store. Went to go and ask somebody to help me. What's the best one to use for someone who's not particularly good with technology? And they said to me, they were all busy. Everyone was busy. Sunday, everyone was busy, and I didn't want to approach and sort of like pester anybody. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to leave. It's no point. I'll just leave. Walked out to the car park. Got to my car. There on the floor, next to my tyre, there is a printer scanner next to the floor. I obviously materialized a printer scanner. And it's not like anybody I was talking to anybody, please, can you help? I need a printer scanner. And they had one in their car, and I thought, right, we'll put it there. I didn't even say anything. So unless everyone's telepathic in the shop and telepathic people. So there was a printer scanner next to my wheel of the car. And I'm like, oh my God, this is just like quite scary. This is weird. And I remember looking around, and it was like everyone had sort of like kind of gone home. It was like late afternoon on a Sunday. So I think to myself, what do? Do I pick it up, put it in my car, or do I leave it? And I'm thinking, I'm going to pick it up and put it in my car. So I sit down and drive. I'm then keep looking at it as I'm driving. And as I'm driving, and it's, starting, so I don't know, it's sort of like winter time, actually, I think it was, because it's sort of starting to get dark. And I'm driving down the back roads, and in my head, there's a experiencer called Suzanne Chancellor. I had been speaking with Suzanne the night before. I'd known Suzanne now for, some while. And we were just sort of like talking about various things. And we were talking about owls and our experiences. Because I think she actually had massive, that's right. She had massive thunder and lightning at the same time that I had this experience, right? Yeah. So I was driving home, and I'm looking at this printer scanner thinking, oh my God, this is really weird. This is just really weird. Driving around the corner, then boom. I remember thinking about Suzanne, first of all, saying, I can see you. Because we had the conversation about owls, and while I was reliving it in my head, I can see you. Then boom, something hit my screen. It was an owl, hit my screen, bounced off the screen, and then went to the right hand side, which was very tall grass. And I was like, oh my God, I've just hit an owl. Oh my God, I've just hit an owl. I pulled the car over. It's dark at night. I get my phone. I put the torch on my phone. I'm trying to look. I'm trying to see if anything's moving in the grass. I'm like, oh my God, I've just hurt this owl. I've hurt this bird. I cannot see any bird. I cannot hear anything. I'm like in the middle of nowhere down these country roads. And I'm thinking, oh my God, right, get in the car, B, go home. So I got in the car, drove home. I got out of the car, and I called my son Orion. I said, Orion, and I told him the story. I said, Orion, what had happened. And I said, I've got a printer scanner in the car. Could you go and get it for me? And he goes, Mum, no, that printer scanner is not coming in the house. You're going to leave it outside the house. I said, why? And he goes, have you seen the film Poltergeist? I said, I remembered. Carol Ann had the last part, closing part